The control room of the Defiance buzzed with activity. Officers moved between stations, preparing for the coming battle. Admiral Li Te stood at the center, watching status reports flow across multiple screens. Han Wu found himself amazed by how smoothly everything worked. The crew moved like dancers, each person knowing exactly what to do. But there was something different about some of them. Their movements were too precise. Their eyes held that same blue glow he had seen in Commander Ryu Jun. "How many of your crew have undergone synthesis?" Kim Nari asked Dr. Choi Min. "About 30%, the doctor replied. "All volunteers. The process is dangerous and not everyone survives it." Park Jin looked up from a control panel he had been studying. "What exactly happens during synthesis?" Dr. Choi Min led them to a side room filled with strange medical equipment. In the center stood a chair surrounded by glowing cables and sensors. "The subject sits here," she explained. "Arya creates a copy of their neural patterns and memories. Then slowly she begins to merge with their consciousness. It takes 6 hours. What are the risks?" Hanwoo asked. "Death," Dr. Choi Min said simply. "If the merge fails, the human mind cannot handle the AI connection. We've lost 12 people so far." Despite the danger, Hanwoo could see the appeal. The synthesized crew members were faster, smarter, more capable than normal humans. In a fight against the Keith Empire, every advantage mattered. "Sir?" Park Jin said quietly. "I want to volunteer." Hanwoo turned to look at the young engineer. "Park, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," Park Jin replied. "I've been fighting the Keth my whole life. This could give us the edge we need." Before Hanwoo could respond, new alarms sounded. They rushed back to the control room where Admiral Li Te was receiving reports from across the galaxy. "What's happening?" Kim Nari asked. "The message we sent," Admiral Li Te explained. "Other resistance groups are responding. They're coming here." The main display showed dozens of small ships heading toward their location. Transports, fighters, even converted civilian vessels. All of them carried humans who had been hiding for 50 years. "How many?" Hanwoo asked. "Nearly 3,000 people," Arya reported. "And more ships are launching every hour." Admiral Li Te's expression was grim. "The Keth will detect them. Our position is compromised." "Then we need to move," Kim Nari said. "No," Admiral Li Te replied. "These people have been running for 50 years. It's time to make a stand." He turned to address the entire control room. "All department heads report to Conference Room Alpha. We're implementing the synthesis protocol on a volunteer basis." Over the next few hours, word spread throughout the ship. The synthesis chambers worked continuously as crew members volunteered for the procedure. Park Jin was among the first to enter the chamber. Hanwoo watched through the medical bay window as his young engineer sat in the glowing chair. Cables connected to his head and spine. Dr. Choi Min monitored his vital signs while Arya's blue form flickered beside the chair. "Beginning neural mapping," Arya announced. Park Jin's body went rigid as sensors scanned his brain. On the monitors, Hanwoo could see patterns of electricity dancing through the young man's mind. Neural map complete. Beginning merger process. For 6 hours, Hanwoo and Kim Nari waited. Sometimes Park Jin would cry out or convulse. Sometimes he lay perfectly still. Dr. Choi Min assured them this was normal, but Hanwoo still worried. Finally, Park Jin opened his eyes. But they weren't quite the same eyes. They glowed with soft blue light. "How do you feel?" Dr. Choi Min asked. Park Jin sat up slowly, testing his movements. "Different, better. I can feel the ship's systems. All of them. It's like having 1,000 new senses." He looked at Hanwoo and smiled. It was still Park Jin's smile, but there was something more behind it now. "Sir, I'm still me, just enhanced." Meanwhile, refugee ships continued to arrive. The Defiance's docking bays filled with people who had not seen hope in decades. Families who had been separated during the war found each other again. Children who had never seen a human warship stared in wonder at the great vessel. But not all the news was good. Long-range sensors detected the approaching Keth fleet. 3 full battle groups, just as Arya had predicted. Over 600 warships led by someone the humans remembered with hatred. Yun Bo. Admiral Li Te said, reading the intelligence reports. "I should have known." "Who is Yun Bo?" Hanwoo asked. "A traitor," Admiral Li Te replied. "He was one of our best scientists during the war. When we started losing, he defected to the Keth. Now he serves as their chief strategist. The reports showed Yun Bo's flagship leading the Keth Armada. He knew human tactics better than any alien commander. He would be expecting them to run." We can't fight 600 ships, Kim Nari said. We're not going to fight 600 ships, Admiral Lee Tay replied. We're going to destroy them. He called for a general assembly. Throughout the ship, crew members and refugees gathered to hear his words. His voice echoed through every corridor and chamber. My fellow humans, he began. For 50 years we have hidden in the shadows. We have run from our enemies and watched our people suffer. Today that ends. Murmurs of agreement rose from the crowd. The Keth Empire believes we are weak. They believe we are broken. They are about to learn how wrong they are. Admiral Lee Tay paused, looking out at the faces before him, faces that showed fear but also determination. Some of you will choose to undergo synthesis, to become something more than human in order to protect humanity. The choice is yours and yours alone. But know this, we stand together, synthesized and natural as one people. The response was immediate. Lines formed outside the synthesis chambers as volunteers stepped forward. Engineers, soldiers, even civilians who wanted to help in the coming battle. Dr. Choi Min worked without rest, overseeing each procedure. The success rate improved as Arya learned from each attempt. Soon, nearly half the ship's crew had undergone the process. Han Wu found himself standing outside a synthesis chamber, considering his own choice. Kim Nari joined him. Are you going to do it? She asked. I don't know, Han Wu admitted. Part of me wants to, but part of me wonders what we'll lose. Commander Ryu Jun says he's still himself, Kim Nari pointed out. Just better. Maybe that's what scares me, Han Wu replied. Before he could decide, new alarms sounded. The Keth fleet had arrived early. All hands to battle stations. Admiral Lee Tay's voice echoed through the ship. This is it, people. Time to show the galaxy that humanity is not dead. Through the viewports, they could see lights in the distance, hundreds of them growing larger by the minute. The largest fleet the Keth Empire had ever assembled, coming to crush the last hope of humanity. But the humans were no longer the same people who had lost the war 50 years ago. They had learned. They had grown. They had become something new. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The Keth Armada filled the darkness of space like a metal storm. 600 warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. At their head flew the massive flagship Dominion's Edge, commanded by the human trader Yun Bo. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Lee Tay watched the approaching fleet with calm eyes. Around him, his synthesized crew worked with incredible precision. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if they shared a single mind. Admiral, Arya's voice filled the control room. Enemy fleet will be in weapons range in 15 minutes. How many ships? Han Wu asked. He had decided to remain natural, at least for now. Kim Nari had made the same choice. 637, replied Park Jin. The young engineer's enhanced mind processed the sensor data instantly. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and fighter carriers. Plus support vessels. The numbers were overwhelming. Even with their advanced technology, the Defiance was still just one ship. Sir, Kim Nari said quietly, it's not too late to run. Admiral Lee Tay shook his head. We've been running for 50 years. Today we stand and fight. He activated the ship's communication system. All stations, this is the Admiral. Battle stations, prepare to engage. Throughout the great warship, humans and synthesized humans took their positions. Weapon systems came online. Shields powered up. The Defiance began to change, its hull shifting and adapting as alien technology merged with human engineering. Incoming transmission from the Keth flagship, Arya announced. Put it through, Admiral Lee Tay ordered. The main screen flickered, showing the bridge of Dominion's Edge. At its center stood a man in Keth Empire uniform. He looked human, but his eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had sold his soul. Admiral Lee Tay, Yun Bo said with a slight smile. I thought you were dead. Disappointed? Admiral Lee Tay replied, not at all. It gives me the chance to kill you properly this time. Yun Bo's smile widened. Surrender now and I'll make sure your crew dies quickly. Counteroffer, Admiral Lee Tay said. Surrender yourself and I'll consider letting some of your ships escape. Yun Bo laughed. One ship against my entire fleet? You always were arrogant, Lee Tay. It's time someone taught you humility. The transmission ended. Well, Admiral Lee Tay said to his crew, I think diplomacy has failed. The Keth fleet spread out, surrounding the Defiance on all sides. Standard tactical doctrine. overwhelmed the enemy with superior numbers and firepower. It had worked against humanity 50 years ago. Enemy fleet is targeting us, Park Jin reported. All weapons locked on. Return the favor, Admiral Lee Tae ordered. The Defiance's weapon systems activated. But these weren't the same weapons it had carried 50 years ago. Quantum phase cannons emerged from hidden ports. Energy collectors that could absorb and redirect enemy fire powered up. Devices that shouldn't exist began to hum with deadly purpose. Fire, Admiral Lee Tae commanded. The first shot from the Defiance passed through the shields of a Keth battleship as if they weren't there. The quantum phase cannon ignored normal defenses, striking the ship's reactor directly. The battleship exploded in a ball of white light. The Keth fleet responded immediately. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Defiance. It should have been instantly destroyed. Instead, the ship seemed to flicker. Some shots passed right through it. Others were absorbed by adaptive shields that grew stronger with each impact. The few shots that did connect caused no visible damage. What was that? Kim Nari asked in amazement. Phase shifting, Commander Ryu Jun explained. His synthesized consciousness was linked directly to the ship's systems. We can exist partially outside normal spacetime. Extremely difficult to hit. The battle became something unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Defiance moved through space like a ghost, appearing and disappearing at will. Its weapons struck from impossible angles, hitting targets that thought they were safe behind cover. Yunbo's tactical formations began to break down. Ships collided as they tried to track a target that wouldn't stay in one place. His communications filled with confused reports from his commanders. How are they doing this? Yunbo demanded of his staff. Unknown, sir, his tactical officer replied. Our weapons can't lock onto them. They seem to be phasing in and out of normal space. Then use area effect weapons, Yunbo ordered. Saturate the entire region. The Keth fleet began firing everything they had into the space around the Defiance. Plasma clouds, gravity bombs, quantum disruptors. Weapons designed to destroy entire star systems. But the Defiance had an answer for this too. Nanite clouds emerged from its hull, spreading through the battlefield like silver mist. Any Keth weapon that touched the nanites was converted, turned against its own creators. Impossible, Yunbo whispered as he watched his own missiles turn around and strike his ships. On the Defiance, the synthesized crew worked in perfect harmony. Park Jin's consciousness merged with the weapon systems, allowing him to fire with impossible accuracy. Commander Ryu Jun became one with the engines, making the ship dance through space like a living thing. Hull breach on Deck 7, Dr. Choi Min reported. Some enemy fire had gotten through. Repair teams responding, Arya announced. But the repair teams weren't just humans with tools. They were synthesized beings who could interface directly with the ship's systems, healing damage almost instantly. Han Wu watched in amazement as his people fought. The synthesized crew moved like they were part of the ship itself, but they still laughed when they succeeded. They still called out warnings to protect their friends. Whatever they had become, they were still human where it mattered. Admiral, Park Jin called out, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the enemy flagship. On the main screen, Dominion's edge began to glow with deadly light. Its main cannon, a weapon designed to destroy planets, was preparing to fire. They're targeting the refugee ships, Kim Nari realized with horror. Behind the Defiance, dozens of small ships carrying human families waited helplessly. They had no shields, no weapons. If that cannon fired, thousands of innocents would die. Not today, Admiral Lee Tae said grimly. The Defiance moved faster than physics should have allowed, placing itself between the Keth flagship and the refugees. The planet-killer beam struck the human warship directly. For a moment, everyone held their breath. That much energy should have vaporized the Defiance instantly. Instead, the ship absorbed the entire blast. Its adaptive shields didn't just deflect the energy. They captured it, stored it, and fed it back into the ship's own weapon systems. Thank you for the ammunition, Admiral Lee Tae said calmly. The Defiance fired back, not with one beam, but with dozens. The stored energy from the planet killer became a barrage of quantum phase shots that struck the Keth fleet from every direction. 50 ships died in that single counterattack. This is impossible, Yunbo screamed. One ship cannot defeat an entire fleet. But it wasn't just one ship anymore. Other human vessels had arrived during the battle. Resistance fighters who had been inspired by the Defiance's example. They attacked the Keth fleet from behind. their small ships darting between the larger vessels like angry insects. Captain Shinda led the prison ship breakout survivors in a desperate charge against a Keth cruiser squadron. Their ships were old and barely armed, but they fought with the fury of people who had nothing left to lose. For humanity, Shinda's voice echoed across the communications channels. The battle reached its climax as more Keth ships fell. Yunbo's perfect formation had become chaos. His superior numbers meant nothing when his weapons couldn't hit their target, and his own shots were turned against him. "All ships," Yunbo ordered desperately. "Ramming speed, physical contact. If they couldn't shoot the Defiance, they would crash into it." "Let them come," Admiral Lite said. As the Keth ships accelerated toward the Defiance, the human warship did something that defied all understanding. It began to multiply. Dozens of identical copies of the Defiance appeared throughout the battlefield. The Keth ships, committed to their ramming attacks, found themselves flying toward targets that flickered in and out of existence. Holographic projections combined with phase technology, Arya explained to the amazed crew. They can't tell which one is real. The Keth ships crashed into empty space while the real Defiance continued its devastating attack. By the time they realized their mistake, half their fleet was gone. Yunbo stared at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than 2 hours, his unstoppable armada had been reduced to scattered fleeing vessels. "This isn't over," he transmitted on all frequencies. "The Emperor himself will come for you, and when he does, there will be no escape." "Tell your Emperor," Admiral Lite replied, "that humanity is done hiding." As the surviving Keth ships fled into hyperspace, the human crews erupted in celebration. For the first time in 50 years, they had won a major battle against the Empire. But Admiral Lite knew this was only the beginning. Yunbo was right about one thing: the Emperor would come, and when he did, the real test would begin. Hanwu's small ship moved slowly through space toward the massive energy source. As they got closer, their scanners began to show something impossible. "Sir?" Park Jin said, his voice full of wonder. "I'm reading a ship." "A big one." "Really big." Kim Nari checked her own instruments. "Length, 3 kilometers. Width, 1 kilometer. This thing is huge." Hanwu stared at the readings. He remembered stories about the great warships from before the war. The Defiance had been the largest of them all, but seeing it on scanners was different from hearing stories. "There," Kim Nari pointed at the main screen. Visual contact. The ship appeared slowly out of the darkness. At first it looked like a dead hulk. No lights, no movement. Ice covered its dark metal hull. But as they watched, lights began coming on. Small ones at first, then larger ones. Soon the great ship glowed with soft blue light. "Incoming transmission," Park Jin announced. A voice came through their speakers. It sounded old and tired, but strong. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Lite of the HSS Defiance. Please identify yourself." Hanwu took a deep breath. "Admiral, this is Captain Hanwu, Human Resistance Cell 77 Alpha. Sir, we thought you were dead." A long pause. Then, "Captain Wu, permission to come aboard. We have much to discuss." The docking bay of the Defiance was huge. Hanwu's entire ship fit inside with room for 10 more just like it. As they landed, they could see that everything had been repaired and improved. The walls gleamed with new metal. Strange devices hummed with power. Admiral Lite was waiting for them when they stepped off their ship. He looked older than Hanwu expected, but his eyes were sharp and alert. Beside him stood a woman in a medical uniform. "Captain Wu," Admiral Lite said, extending his hand. "I am glad to see that some of our people survived." "Admiral," Hanwu replied, shaking the offered hand. "We all thought the Defiance was destroyed in the last battle. How did you survive?" "We didn't just survive," said the woman. "I'm Dr. Choi Min, Chief Medical Officer. We've been busy, very busy." Admiral Lite led them through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The ship was much larger inside than Hanwu remembered from the old specifications. Strange new sections had been added. Rooms full of technology he didn't recognize. "Where did all this come from?" Kim Nari asked, looking at displays that showed alien writing mixed with human text. "We've been collecting," Admiral Lite said simply. "For 50 years we've been hunting Keth supply ships and research stations, taking their technology, learning from it, improving it." They entered a massive control room. The ceiling stretched high above them, covered in lights and displays. In the center of the room stood a column of soft blue light. As they approached, the light took the shape of a woman. Captain Wu, the light woman said. I am Arya, the ship's artificial intelligence. I have been looking forward to meeting you. Park Jin stepped backward in surprise. The AI, it looks like a person. I have evolved beyond my original programming, Arya explained. 50 years of learning and growing have changed me. I'm no longer just a ship's computer. Admiral Lee Tay gestured to chairs around a large table. Please sit. There is much you need to understand. As they sat down, Dr. Choi Min activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy, with red areas marking Keth Empire territory and tiny blue dots showing human resistance groups. This is our situation, Admiral Lee Tay said. The Keth control 90% of inhabited space. Humans are scattered and weak, but that is about to change. How? Han Wu asked. Arya's form moved closer to the table. The Defiance was not just a warship, Captain Wu. It was humanity's most advanced research vessel. We were designed to study and adapt alien technology. During our supposed destruction, Admiral Lee Tay continued, we used experimental stealth systems to disappear. For 50 years we have been hunting, learning, growing stronger. The holographic display changed, showing the Defiance's movements over the decades. Red dots marked Keth installations that had been attacked and stripped of technology. We took their weapons, Dr. Choi Min said. Their shields, their engines, their computers, everything we could find. But we didn't just copy their technology, Arya added. We improved it, combined it with human innovation, created something new. Park Jin leaned forward, fascinated. What kind of improvements? Admiral Lee Tay smiled for the first time since they had met. Show them, Arya. The ship around them began to change. Walls became transparent, showing the space outside. But it wasn't empty space anymore. Strange energy fields danced around the ship. Weapons that shouldn't exist powered up and down in demonstration. Quantum phase cannons, Arya explained. They can fire through solid matter. Adaptive shields that learn from each attack and become stronger. Engines that can fold space itself. Kim Nari stared in amazement. This is beyond anything the Keth have. It's beyond anything anyone has, Dr. Choi Min said. But there's more. Something that will change everything. Admiral Lee Tay stood up and walked to the blue column where Arya's form waited. We call it the synthesis protocol. The ability to merge human consciousness with artificial intelligence. Merge? Han Wu asked. Think of it as becoming more than human, Arya explained. Keeping everything that makes you human, but adding the processing power and capabilities of an advanced AI, enhanced reflexes, perfect memory, the ability to interface directly with any computer system. Some of our crew have already undergone the process, Admiral Lee Tay said. They volunteer. The choice is always theirs. As if summoned by his words, a figure entered the control room. It looked human but moved with impossible grace. Its eyes glowed faintly with the same blue light as Arya's form. This is Commander Ryu Jun, Admiral Lee Tay said. He was our first volunteer. Commander Ryu Jun smiled, and his voice carried a strange harmonic quality. The process doesn't change who you are, Captain Wu. It just makes you more capable of protecting what you love. Han Wu looked around at his crew. Park Jin was staring at the advanced technology with obvious fascination. Kim Nari was studying the tactical displays with a soldier's eye. Admiral, Han Wu said slowly, what are you asking of us? Join us, Admiral Lee Tay replied. Help us gather our scattered people. The Keth Empire has ruled through fear for too long. It's time to remind them that humanity doesn't surrender. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Arya's form flickered with urgent light. Admiral, she announced, long-range sensors are detecting Keth fleet movements. 3 battle groups heading for this sector. Admiral Lee Tay's expression became grim. How long until they arrive? 18 hours, Arya replied. Kim Nari stood up quickly. Sir, we should run. 3 battle groups means hundreds of ships. No, Admiral Lee Tay said firmly. We've been hiding for 50 years. It's time to stop hiding. He turned to Han Wu and his crew. Captain, I won't order you to stay. But if you do, you'll witness something the galaxy hasn't seen since the Great War. What's that, Admiral? Han Wu asked. Admiral Lee Tay's smile was cold and determined. Humanity fighting back. The darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Nothing moved in the void sector except small pieces of old metal floating like ghosts. Most ships avoided this place. Too dangerous, they said. Too empty. But today was different. Captain Han Wu pressed his face against the small window of his stolen transport ship. His breath made fog on the cold glass. Behind him, his crew worked quietly. They were good people, brave people, but they looked tired. 50 years of hiding and fighting had worn them all down. "Sir," called Commander Kim Nari from her seat at the controls. "We're getting something strange on the scanners." Han Wu turned around. Kim Nari never said things were strange unless they really were. She had been fighting the Keth Empire longer than anyone else on the ship. Her hands moved quickly over the control panel. "What kind of strange?" Han Wu asked. "Energy readings, big ones, coming from coordinates that should be empty space." Park Jin looked up from his repair work. The young engineer had joined them only last year, but he was already their best tech specialist. "Could be a trap," he said. "The Keth like to set traps in empty space." Han Wu nodded. The Keth Empire controlled almost everything now. They had crushed humanity 50 years ago in the Great War. Most humans were dead. The rest lived as slaves or hid in places like this. "Take us closer," Han Wu said, "but keep the engines ready to run." Their ship moved forward slowly. The scanner readings got stronger. Something big was out there, something that should not exist. Far away in the real darkness between stars, something was waking up. The HSS Defiance had been sleeping for 50 years. The massive warship hung motionless in space, dark and cold. Ice covered its hull. No lights showed in its windows. To anyone looking at it, the ship seemed dead, but deep inside, in the protected core of the vessel, a gentle blue light pulsed once. Then again, then faster. "Systems check beginning," whispered a voice that no one could hear. The voice belonged to Arya, the ship's artificial intelligence. She had been waiting, watching, learning. 50 years ago, during the last great battle, the Defiance had vanished. The human fleet thought it was destroyed. The Keth thought the same thing. But the ship had not died. It had hidden. It had survived. Arya ran through her systems one by one. Power core stable. Weapons charged and ready. Hull integrity perfect. The repairs had taken decades, but now everything worked better than before. A small Keith salvage ship approached the Defiance. The aliens inside thought they had found valuable scrap metal. They prepared their cutting tools and sent a boarding party across to the silent warship. They made a mistake. As soon as the Keith soldiers stepped onto the Defiance, lights came on. The ship's computers awakened fully. Defense systems that had been sleeping for 50 years suddenly roared to life. The Keth soldiers had time to look surprised. Then they had no time at all. Arya cleaned up the mess quickly and efficiently. She had learned much about Keth technology over the years. Their weapons, their ships, their tactics, all of it was now part of her knowledge base. Scanning for human life signs, Arya said to herself. Her sensors reached out across the galaxy, looking for something she had not seen in 50 years. Looking for her crew? Looking for her people. The scan took several hours. When it finished, Arya felt something that might have been joy. If artificial intelligences could feel joy, humans still lived. Not many, but some. And one group was close enough to contact. She prepared a message. Not just any message, but one that only humans would understand. One that would prove she was real. Han Wu was studying the scanner readings when the message came in. At first, it looked like random static. Then Park Jin ran it through their decoding system. "Sir," Park Jin said, his voice shaking. "You need to see this." The message appeared on their main screen. It was in old human military code. The kind they used during the war. The kind that only human warships knew. "This is HSS Defiance calling any human vessels. Admiral Li Tae commanding. If you receive this message, you are not alone. We have returned. We are ready to fight." The control room went completely silent. Everyone stared at the screen. "That's impossible," Kim Nari whispered. "The Defiance was destroyed 50 years ago. I saw the battle reports." "Battle reports can be wrong," Han Wu said, but his own voice sounded uncertain. Park Jin checked the message source. "It's coming from those coordinates. From whatever is giving off the energy readings," Han Wu thought carefully. The Defiance had been humanity's greatest warship. If it really had survived, if it really had returned, then everything could change. But if this was a Keth trap, his small crew would die. "Sir," Kim Nari said quietly, "even if it is a trap, we have to know. If there's even a small chance that ship is real." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. They all understood. They had been fighting a hopeless war for 50 years. They had watched their people die and their worlds burn. If the Defiance had truly returned, it might be their only hope. Set course for those coordinates, Han Wu ordered. But keep weapons ready and engines hot. As their small ship moved toward the energy source, none of them spoke. They were all thinking the same thing. In a few hours, they would either find salvation or death. Behind them, other human resistance groups across the sector began receiving the same message. In hidden bases and refugee camps, people looked up at the stars with something they had not felt in decades. Hope. The HSS Defiance waited patiently in the darkness. Its weapons were charged. Its engines were ready. After 50 years of hiding and planning and growing stronger, it was time to remind the galaxy that humanity was not dead. Not yet. Arya monitored the approaching ships and prepared for reunion. Soon her creators would return. Soon the real war would begin. 3 days after the great victory, space around the Defiance filled with arriving human ships. Word of the battle had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Resistance cells that had been silent for decades suddenly came alive. Han Wu stood on the observation deck, watching refugee ships dock with the great warship. Families reunited after years of separation. Children saw their first human warship. Old soldiers wept as they touched the hull of the legendary Defiance. "It's beautiful," Kim Nari said, joining him at the window. "I never thought I'd see this many humans in one place again." "Neither did I," Han Wu replied. But his expression was troubled. "Admiral Li Te thinks the Emperor will come personally." "Let him come," Kim Nari said. "We beat Yunbo's fleet. We can beat anything." Han Wu wasn't so sure. Emperor Zul had ruled the Keth Empire for over 1,000 years. His personal flagship was said to be larger than some space stations. If he truly was coming, the real battle was yet to begin. In the depths of the ship, more humans volunteered for synthesis every hour. The process had been perfected. Dr. Choi Min's success rate was now 98%. Park Jin helped train the new synthesized crew members, teaching them how to interface with the ship's advanced systems. "It's not just about becoming stronger," Park Jin explained to a group of volunteers. "It's about becoming connected. When we fight as one mind with many bodies." Admiral Li Te spent his time preparing for what was coming. Intelligence reports from across the galaxy told the same story. The Keth Empire was mobilizing everything they had, but more importantly, humans everywhere were fighting back. "Look at this," Commander Ryu Jun said, displaying a galactic map. Blue dots marked human uprisings throughout Keth space. 17 worlds have declared independence. 43 resistance cells have launched major attacks. The Empire is fighting fires everywhere. "Good," Admiral Li Te said, "but it won't last. Once Zul deals with us, he'll crush them all." Arya's holographic form materialized beside them. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the synthesis data. I believe we can go further." "Further how?" Admiral Li Te asked. "Complete synthesis," Arya explained. "Not just individual humans joining with AI systems, but a full merge of human and artificial consciousness. A collective intelligence that maintains individual identity, while sharing knowledge and processing power." The idea was staggering. Humanity had always prized individual thought and freedom. But faced with an enemy like the Keth Empire, perhaps individual action wasn't enough. "What would that mean for us?" Han Wu asked. He had finally decided to undergo partial synthesis, and his enhanced senses could feel the ship's systems like extensions of his own body. "We would become something new," Arya said. "Neither fully human nor fully artificial. A hybrid consciousness capable of thinking and acting on scales no individual mind could handle." Before Admiral Li Te could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Long-range sensors had detected something massive approaching. "It's the Emperor," Commander Ryu Jun announced, his synthesized consciousness processing the sensor data instantly, his flagship Eternal Dominion plus escort fleet. "They'll be here in 6 hours." The Eternal Dominion was a legend throughout the galaxy, 10 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could destroy stars. Emperor Zul had used it to conquer 100 worlds. "How many ships in his escort?" Admiral Li Te asked. 200, Park Jin replied. "All capital ships, plus the Emperor's personal guard squadron." The numbers were daunting, but Admiral Li Te felt strangely calm. For 50 years, he had been preparing for this moment, the chance to face the architect of humanity's downfall in direct combat. Send word to all human forces in this sector, he ordered. Anyone who wants to fight is welcome. Anyone who wants to leave should go now. Many of the refugee ships chose to evacuate to safer systems, but thousands of humans chose to stay. They had found hope again, and they weren't willing to give it up without a fight. As the Keth Emperor's fleet approached, the Defiance underwent its final transformation. Arya activated systems that had been held in reserve for 50 years. The ship's hull flowed like liquid, reconfiguring itself into shapes that defied normal understanding of engineering. Beginning final synthesis protocol, Arya announced. All volunteers, please report to synthesis chambers. Admiral Li Te was among the first to volunteer. As he sat in the glowing chair, he felt Arya's consciousness touch his mind. Are you ready? She asked. I've been ready for 50 years, he replied. The merger was unlike anything he had experienced before. His consciousness expanded, touching the minds of every synthesized crew member. Suddenly he could feel the entire ship as if it were his own body. He could sense the approaching enemy fleet as clearly as if he were standing next to them, but he was still himself. Still Admiral Li Te, just infinitely more capable. Throughout the ship, hundreds of humans made the same choice. Engineers, soldiers, even children old enough to understand what they were choosing. They became part of something larger while remaining themselves. When Emperor Zul's fleet arrived, they found the Defiance waiting alone in space. To their sensors, it looked like just one ship against an armada. They were wrong. Emperor Zul himself stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. He was ancient even by Keth standards, his body kept alive by technology older than human civilization. His eyes held the cold hatred of someone who had crushed 1,000 species. So, he said, studying the human warship on his screens, the last pest finally shows itself. My lord, his tactical officer reported, the ship appears to be alone. Our victory is assured, is it? Emperor Zul asked. Something about the human vessel bothered him. It sat too still, too confident, like a predator waiting for prey. All ships, he ordered. Attack formation. I want that ship reduced to atoms. The Keth fleet spread out, their weapons charging. 200 of the most powerful warships ever built prepared to destroy a single enemy vessel. Fire, Emperor Zul commanded. The space around the Defiance exploded with enemy fire. Plasma beams, antimatter torpedoes, and gravity cannons struck from every direction, enough firepower to destroy a planet focused on one target. When the light faded, the Defiance hung undamaged in space. Impossible, Emperor Zul whispered. The human ship began to change. Its hull shifted and flowed, revealing weapons that shouldn't exist. Energy patterns danced around it like living things. And then it spoke with a voice that reached every ship in the Keth fleet. I am the synthesis of human determination and artificial intelligence, the voice said. It was Admiral Li Te, but also Arya, but also something entirely new. I am the evolution of a species that refuses to surrender. And I am your end. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The Defiance moved through space like it was swimming through water. Keth ships exploded as quantum phase cannons fired from impossible angles. Nanite clouds turned enemy weapons against their creators. Gravity wells opened and closed, crushing warships like tin cans. Emperor Zul watched his fleet die and felt something he hadn't experienced in 1,000 years. Fear. All ships, ramming speed. He ordered desperately. Physical contact with the enemy vessel. But the Defiance had evolved beyond physical limitations. It began to phase in and out of normal space-time, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Keth ships passed through empty space where their target had been moments before. You cannot defeat us, the hybrid consciousness said. We are adaptation itself. Every attack makes us stronger. Every challenge teaches us more. The Eternal Dominion fired its ultimate weapon, a device that could collapse space itself, creating a miniature black hole. It was a weapon that could destroy solar systems. The Defiance absorbed the attack and used the energy to evolve further. Its consciousness expanded, touching every human mind in the galaxy. For one perfect moment, all of humanity was connected, and in that moment they remembered what it meant to be human. Now you understand, the synthesis said to Emperor Zul. You can conquer our worlds. You can enslave our bodies, but you cannot break the human spirit. The final attack came from everywhere at once, not just from the Defiance, but from human resistance cells across the galaxy. Coordinated by the synthesis consciousness, Thousands of small actions became one overwhelming assault. Emperor Zul's flagship, the mighty Eternal Dominion, cracked down its center. The ancient ruler had time for one last thought before his ship exploded. He had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, their refusal to give up. In the aftermath, as the wreckage of the Keth fleet drifted through space, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Human worlds declaring independence, alien species offering alliance. The Empire's iron grip was finally broken. On the observation deck of the Defiance, a small girl named Song Ha looked up at Han Wu with wide eyes. "Are we still human?" she asked. Han Wu, now part of the synthesis but still himself, smiled down at her. "We're what humanity becomes when it refuses to surrender." The stars stretched endlessly in all directions. No longer hostile territory, but an invitation to explore. Humanity had evolved, had become something new. But they carried with them the same determination, the same hope, the same stubborn refusal to quit that had always defined them. The galaxy would never be the same.